Welcome into this myth-busting kind of thing. Number one, anybody in the world is better than America, especially at cricket. Number two, that the OU Sooners own Bedlam. Right. Because we're the ones too afraid to play on campus anymore.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Kody Routledge. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at AllDayOState. Today, we're partially brought to you by Game Time Tickets. Get in on the action today. All you have to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Get in on the action. Terms apply. Get your purchase game going today. Meanwhile, we're going to shift focus into congratulations, United States of America. We're the best in the world at a sport that a lot of us didn't even know we played. Much like nationally, there's a common misconception that OU owns the Bedlam series and that Oklahoma State is too afraid to continue to play OU in this Bedlam series. Well, this is like a myth-busting style of episode. Clearly, right? Myth number one, nobody in the world's better than America at almost anything, but definitely not cricket. And myth number two, this idea that OU controls Bedlam is just simply not true. And we have a way to quantify this information. There's this fun little thing called the Bedlam Series Trophy. And what it is a multitude of sports where the head-to-head matchup equals a certain amount of points. Now, we all know that OU fans will pretend that the only sports that matter are OU, or there, see, I did it, football and softball. And that's awesome. And OU just won a national title in softball. Congratulations. But what they didn't do was beat Oklahoma State, which is why Oklahoma State won the Bedlam Series 23-24 edition by a score 26-9, a.k.a. not even close. We ran away with it because we beat them in the sports that they consider to be the important ones. Yeah, they did have a couple wins in golf. They did have a couple wins in basketball. Hats off. Congratulations. You got owned and drugged through the mud in football. You got owned in softball at your own daggone stadium, which may be why Patty Gasso is, of course, okay with the Bedlam series continuing, but she's refusing to have them on campuses, right? There has to be a meetup area in Oklahoma City. Now, of course, there's going to be some kind of spin that it seats more people. Of course, it's going to be more impactful if it's at that kind of arena. That's fine, and that's a decent argument. But to my recollection, that's not what Patty Gasso wants, nor did she point out, right, the direct reasoning why playing in Oklahoma City is better than playing on the nicest field in all of college softball, which happens to be in Norman. We're okay with playing you there because we know we can beat you there because we just did it back-to-back times before you won your national title. Hey, you had Kelly Maxwell go backwards. Good job there. Guys, you did good. But as it pertains to football, we know basketball has been announced to be coming back to the Paycom Center, which is where the Thunder play. That's going to be pretty daggone cool. And as far as football is concerned, I already expressed the fact that I feel like it is an inevitability that it does come back. Now, because of the contract schedule stuff, it is going to take some time before it's like, a regularly allotted game. I do think that's going to happen after this 8 years of the non-con schedule kind of works itself out. Then I do indeed believe that Bedlam will start becoming a regular thing again in football. But that's the thing is, most everything else, why would they continue to keep this Bedlam thing going? They can't win. This is very clear. OU has actually, they've won how many Bedlam Series trophies since 2013? Go ahead. 1 and 2 and 3. And if you guessed one, you nailed it. They've won one time since 2013 in the Bedlam Series. So football, basketball, baseball, track, cross country, wrestling. These things that get counted are clearly in Oklahoma State's favor. Since 2013, it's been not even all that competitive when it comes to the Bedlam series. So we want Bedlam. This misconception that OU fans continue to propagate is the fact that Mike Gundy is scared of Bedlam. Oklahoma State is scared to continue Bedlam. Why would that be the case when we've won 2 of the last 3, and now we have arguably one of the greatest returning teams in Oklahoma State history? If there's any year we want another time to have fun with OU in football, it's this upcoming season. But let's face the facts. As much as Joe Castiglione is going to, peacock that, OU wants to do Bedlam, but Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State don't. As much as that peacocking flies around, we all know that that's not entirely accurate. If OU really, really, really wanted Bedlam to continue, they would make some sort of offer to buy out a non-conference team, right? I mean, it does happen all the time. So if OU really wanted Bedlam to continue because it's a quote-unquote guaranteed W, if you go back to 1905, sure. But this last handful of years, not so much. And this is across the board. So, all this to say, I do think Bedlam is going to happen because before the 8 years of non-con, if the committee has any ability to make Bedlam a playoff style of football game, they're absolutely going to do it. It'd be the same concept as a bowl game. If there was like the big time BCS era style bowl game still around, then some of these big bowls would be chomping at the bit to make Bedlam a matchup. Therefore, I think it's inevitable that it does happen before this 8-9 year non-con issue sorts itself out. But as far as the other sports go, I think it's kind of a little bit of a stain on the Bedlam series for it not to continue to do the campuses. And it looks like softball, right? That makes a lot of sense to keep this campus thing going, especially with the renovations that Cowgirl softball is about to make. On top of the recent success that both teams have had, I think it's applicable as well in basketball. It's applicable, obviously, in baseball. But the campus atmosphere is partially what makes Bedlam Bedlam. So the fact that there's the greatest coach in the history of softball come out and say, we don't want to do the campus things. If we're going to do Bedlam, it's going to be at a neutral site. Okay, cool. We'll do that. We'll run with that. We'll have fun with it. And we'd even be willing to do it in football would be my guess. Again, I think it would take away from it. But that's okay. We're not the ones afraid of Bedlam. You can almost pick how many times you've heard Oklahoma University fans talk anything positive about the Bedlam series continuing, which is kind of ironic, right? But at the same time, when you look at the numbers, I completely understand why OU would not want to continue Bedlam. They're going to spin this narrative as they have been, and the SECya, I'm sure, is going to help kind of push it out as well. But this idea that Oklahoma State doesn't want to participate in Bedlam anymore is preposterous. Just go look at the numbers. We like winning, and we do a lot of winning over OU in a lot of sports, especially recently. This is like the worst time in Oklahoma State history for OU to be leaving the conference, but that's okay. Make sure that you let the facts be known. We own OU. Point blank, period. The Bedlam series indicates that exact thing. Now, of course, football is the only thing that matters in Norman, so they're going to bring up 91, 19, 7, of course. Those are the numbers they're taught to remember throughout their public educational systems. But they won't mention what's been happening recently. They won't mention what's been happening across the country with this landscape shift. Bedlam's going to come back. And when it does, I can assure you that it won't be Oklahoma State fans that have any ill will towards it. It will be the other way around. If OU thought it was a guaranteed win, they would find a way to pay out one of our non-con teams so they could slide in and get that guaranteed W. But that ain't going to happen because they don't want this smoke. All this is a constant propping up before they enter SEC play, which is cool. It's cute. It's great. We all know that we own Bedlam. We own you, OU, so just own it. It's okay. Now, if you want to dig back for football for years, that's okay. We shall allow. Just like we also shall allow the excitement to continue to build for Steve Lutz and the basketball squad. We've got some offers out. We've got to get a big-time guy to secure a big-time spot. Just like you need to swing for the big-time games with Game Time. Getting tickets should not be the biggest concern whenever you're trying to, go to an event. And it doesn't just have to be sports. It could be music, comedy, or theater. The Game Time app makes it super simplistic for you to take the guesswork out of the buying ticket process. The planes, the hotels, the rentals, the travel, all that is already ridiculously not fun. So don't make it any more stressful on yourself. Make sure you download the Game Time app today. The last minute deals can save you up to 60% of buying last minute tickets for sports, comedy, music, theater. Y'all know that the seat view is a big deal to me. You get the panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. The Game Time ticket coverage means that your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Make sure that you go take the guesswork out of you buying NBA Finals tickets or other fun events around you with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but make sure you create that account. Locked On College, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We'll shift gears here again to the news of basketball and Steve Lutz. Now, when it comes to what the outlook on the season is going to be, that might be, a little bit down the line. But one thing I can say is the fact that we were able to keep Bryce Thompson, huge, Connor Dow, huge. But I had mentioned multiple times that one of the biggest pieces to me that made the most amount of sense to keep would have been Jamiron Keller. At the end of the season, we saw some of the capabilities that Jamiron Keller brought to the court, and from a hustle standpoint and being able to kind of spread the floor out a little bit and have the ability to kind of, drive and dish and dink and dunk and all that. Jamiron Keller, I think, does add an additional layer to the three main dudes who are staying to help break in the new roster. Now, there's been an article recently put out by Pistols Firing in regards to some of the things that he mentioned in a recent interview that he was on. And one of the direct quotes that they put in Pistols Firing from that interview was in regards to how things are kind of coming along with this group. The quote being, "We're very functional." I know that's probably not a sexy word to use, but in light of today's NIL market, you've got to be precise with who you bring in. These guys, from what I can tell, in a week of workouts that we've had, all know how to play basketball a little bit. They're about the right things. We've got to add some more size to our front line, and hopefully we'll get that knocked out here in this summer. But I like the functionality of each and every one of the guys on the roster. I think that our guard core is going to be fun to watch because they all play very fast. AKA, as it sits right now, we're going to run with a kind of, smaller lineup. It just is what it is. But when you do look at that small lineup, we noticed Bryce Thompson has some elevation last year before the injury, and he was right around that 15, 16 points a game mark throughout the course of the season, which definitely was an improvement. We just mentioned Jamiron Keller. Now you've got to take into consideration you've got the Arkansas transfer, Devontae Davis. You've got the LaSalle leading scorer, Khalil Bradley. You've got the steals leader, Arturo Dean, coming in as well. Brandon Newman, who was with him at Western Kentucky. This is a group that should be able to somewhat hockey-style rotate. The balancing act is difficult, and he also touched base a little bit on his philosophy between the traditional high school recruits and some of the transfer portal type of stuff. We're looking in the portal, obviously, because we need that to be the foundation of what this season's going to be. Outside of the three mainstays that are coming back, there's a lot that Steve Lutz needs to kind of narrow down. And one of the things I will say that was a breath of fresh air was his response to kind of his thoughts on Gallagher Iba. Right. Another quote was, he wants to find a way to beat the guys in the conference that are the heavy hitters, like your Kelvin Sampsons or your Bill Selfs or your Scott Drews. And in this other quote, he said, one of the ways we're going to have to beat those guys is by having Gallagher Iba packed to capacity. Everybody has always talked about it being one of the rowdiest places in the country, and it's really hard to play there. Coach Eddie Sutton used to always say it's worth 5 to 8 points a game just being in that building. Well, we've got to get back to that. We've got to really make it hard for people to come to Stillwater and win games, and then figure out ways to steal a few games on the road as well. His emphasis on protecting Gallagher Iba Arena, I think, is what a large portion of us has just kind of been asking for. If you protect the home court, you're likely to steal a couple on the road throughout the course of the season and put yourself in a decent position to make a run at Big 12 tournament. If you do that, you give yourself an opportunity to make the field of 64, 68. Oklahoma State does have some opportunities this season. Now, whenever it comes to the dude that obviously we need to kind of look at to secure, well, he was pretty on it over the weekend. And there was no shortage of offers that he decided to hand out. So out of the offers that he decided to hand out, right, let's kind of break down some of them real quick. We sent out an offer to Caden Edwards, 6', 370-pound guard, 4-star prospect out of Duncanville, Texas. Sebastian Williams Adams, 6'8", 225-pound forward from the 2025 class, another 4-star. And then we've got Kareem Stagg, 6'8", 230 pounds. And this is the one I kind of wanted to stop and focus on, but we'll come back. You've got Eric Ribe, 7-footer out of Germany. You got Adam, I can't pronounce the last name, Odemich. Almaduch. Yeah, that guy. Justin Caldwell's another one. Latrell Hammond, Johans Connor. But let's circle back around, because out of all of these, Kareem Stagg seems to be the most intriguing to me. Not just because he's 6'8", 230 pounds, but we just got an IMG Academy commit the other day, and Mr. Kyle McPherson, defensive end. We could get another one. Let's start this IMG Academy in Florida Bridge right here, right now, beginning with Mr. McPherson and continuing in basketball with Kareem Stagg. He's a little kind of under the radar. 247 does have him ranked as the 204th player in America, and he was averaging just shy of 11 points a game, 4.4 rebounds, 1.1 assists, shooting 59% from the field and 44% from the three-point arc. Hello. And here's the best part to me. The biggest offers, Texas A&M, Providence, Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, St. Louis, none of those can provide what Oklahoma State can provide. None of those can equal the amount of development and intensity that Gallagher Iba provides. That environment, this university, the rich tradition and history is worth more than anything Texas A&M has to offer at the moment, other than dollar bills, y'all. And Providence, Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, St. Louis, just nowhere in the same hemisphere as Oklahoma State and Gallagher Iba Arena. Texas A&M, maybe a little bit, but it's not the same. So I would keep an eye on Kareem Stagg because it makes a lot of sense. It is a area of need for Oklahoma State, so we don't have to consistently rely on the smaller lineups, although if you do establish some depth A benefit to having the smaller lineups is you can kind of do different iterations of some levels of half court and full court press throughout the course of the game to keep the other team on their toes. And if you're in shape enough and you have a little bit of depth, that could be a pretty cool picture. It could be a really, really nice picture. Again, this whole, changeover for Steve Lutz is going to take some time. He's going from a significantly smaller level of college basketball to Oklahoma State. So there's a lot of things from NIL to boosters and funds and meetings and recruiting and trips that are significantly different. He'll take some time to kind of round it all out, but guys like Bryce Thompson, Connor Dow, and Jamiron Keller are enough of a building block to make this all make sense throughout the course of the season and equal something, maybe not spectacular, but at least worth coming to every single game inside Gallagher-Iba Arena. It's all about getting your money's worth. We should be able to provide that from a fan perspective this season. Much like in wrestling, we should be able to provide a lot of fan excitement throughout the course of the season in wrestling. Although, we also have some bad news. And that's the fact that Christian Carroll entered the transfer portal. Now, with Wyatt Hendrickson coming over, it does make some sense. Although a lot of people assumed with the talent that Christian Carroll had, like he was like a consensus 5-star-ish style of guy who had offers from everywhere, was looking very, very, very hard at Penn State before he committed to Oklahoma State, which is a little surprising. It would be kind of ironic if he ended up at Penn State, right? That would be kind of like one of these weird energies in the world kind of colliding. But it's okay. Does losing Christian Carroll hurt? Absolutely. Because if he bumps down to 197 and you have Wyatt Hendrickson up at the big boy weight, it does make us much, much more competitive. Just like you want to load as many 165 range guys as you can because that's one of the most competitive weights in the world, we did it again. So it does soften the blow of Christian Carroll by bringing in another wrestler. And the beauty of this one is Kody Routledge is an Okie from Edmond North, who was previously committed to go wrestle at Nebraska. This Oklahoma 6A state champion just went 39-2. He's ranked the 16th wrestler in America by Matt Scouts. This definitely is intriguing. Of course, the headliner is still going to be Ladarian Lockett because he's one of the greatest wrestlers in the history of high school wrestling, across the country. And he also defeated Stillwater High and OU signee Landon Sumner for the 157-pound state title. And that's even better, right, for this Bedlam conversation. Any Stillwater High guy that ends up at OU deserves to catch some whooping. So for the future of watching Kody whoop up on Landon, it's going to be pretty fun. He went from 138 pounds, 150 pounds to 157 pounds. So he easily could potentially get that to that 165-pound range. It is a loaded weight. But at the same time, this is the comfort zone for David Taylor. And he's very well aware that range of weights is traditionally where the most amount of competition is across the country. So if you have a handful of dudes that are all 165-pound national qualifier, all-American style guys that can either put on a little bit of weight or do a little bit of extra shedding of the weight, then you have a plethora of dudes that are going to be almost impossible to beat because they're wrestling each other constantly and they're wrestling people of different weight to give them different looks and different things to work around. So although losing out on Christian Carroll would be very, very troublesome, it also underscores, I think, the idea that David Taylor is not here to play favorites. He's not here to sugarcoat anything. He's not here to make anything fun, fancy, and fluffy. Much like Steve Lutz, right? He's here to do a job. Unlike Steve Lutz, he already comes with the capital and the status to be able to recruit instantly in the top tier. Obviously, he's doing that. The news of Christian Carroll, it stinks. It's weird that he's one of the most heralded wrestlers to come to Oklahoma State, and he's leaving before he ever really gets an opportunity to do some stuff on the mat, even though 197, I mean, what's wrong with that, big fella? He does have the do not contact on his transfer portal stuff, but we learned from basketball season that don't really mean a whole heck of a lot. Because several players who had the I'm in the transfer portal, but please don't contact me, they waited on the news of the new coach for the most part. They had their exit meetings or inter meetings, whatever you want to call them, with the new coaches. And then they definitely decided they were gone. Maybe some of them had already decided they were gone before we brought Steve Lutz in. That was just a little formality that made things look nice on paper, or at least publicly. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. But I do know that we're in good shape with wrestling. And just like we're in good shape in football. And if OU wants to bring back Bedlam, I can assure you that most of us are all for it. We're all about it. We didn't ever want it to go anywhere. Now, am I a fan of what Mike Gundy had to say in regards to Bedlam? And, no, because it did kind of look that, I don't know, he was resistant or hesitant to continue the Bedlam thing. And maybe his record gives him cause for concern. But Bedlam as a whole shouldn't concern a single Oklahoma State fan. And Bedlam football right now, definitely not a concern to any Oklahoma State fan. I guarantee you the locker room wants another piece of OU just for funsies. Just like that locker room would like another piece of Texas, because that hurt, and it set kind of a negative perception, right? The perception, I think, is bleeding off into some of the undervaluing of Oklahoma State coming into the season, like the over-under 7.5 type situations. It's okay. That's why we live in this season of capitalization for Mike Gundy. Yeah, the Mike Gundy that at one point in time seemed to be skating on some thinning ice. But he did precisely what any of us could have asked. So, last season was magical. This season should be even better. All righty, y'all. We did do the Locked On Utah recording, but he's about to be doing some traveling stuff, so we might actually push that recording off for a few days. I don't know. I'll keep you updated in that department. Anywho, had to give you this one right here. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike it if you don't, because that's okay too. Most importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. The podcast and folks out there, you know what to do. Hit the stars. Leave a review. I appreciate you. All righty, y'all. Later, taters.